Hello everyone and welcome to another video of the Sky channel. So in this video we are going to be talking about the top 5 epic healers for you to be using in the arena. And let's start with the Cardinal. Now the Cardinal's skill number 3 revives all dead allies and heals them by 25% of their maximum HP and also boosts their turn meters to the maximum. Cooldown is 7 turns but it can be brought down to 5. So an amazing skill in the fact that it revives all of your dead allies and then heals them by 25% but also boosts their turn meters to the maximum, so they should be able to go next. Skill number 2 is a healing skill, and what it does is that it heals an ally by 30% of their maximum HP while also placing a 60% increased defense buff on them for 2 turns. As you level up the skill further, the healing amount increases and the cooldown decreases from 4 turns to 3 turns. So a reasonable amount of healing and also an increase in defense, allowing them to live a little bit longer. Now it is worth noting that this heal is only for a single champion, but still fairly effective. Now we talk about the normal attack, which is skill 1, attacks an enemy and has a 10% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff for 2 turns, and as you level this up further you get an increased chance in placing that poison debuff and also an increase in damage. So that's the Cardinal, and now we're going to go over to the next one. And that is the Dawncaller Sabitha. Now skill number 3 revives an ally, a single one, with 25% of HP and 100% turn meter. So hopefully that champion ends up going next. It also places a block damage buff on that ally for 2 turns. And this one is really nice because block damage prevents your champion from getting any sort of damage for that duration of the buff. And this is 2 turns, which is quite amazing. The cooldown of this skill is 6 turns, but it can be reduced to 4 if you level up the skill. Skill number 2 places an increased defense buff and 50% increased attack buff on all allies for 2 turns. So increasing their survivability through the defense and increasing their damage through the increased attack buff. The cooldown is 5 turns, but it can be reduced to 3. And the best part is the passive ability. Whenever this champion revives an ally, which it does through its skill 3, it decreases the cooldown of one of the champion's skills by 1 turn. So it's either going to decrease the revival skills cooldown by 1, or it's going to decrease this increased defense and increased attack buff cooldown by 1 turn every time you revive. Finally, the normal attack, skill 1, attacks an enemy and heals an ally with the lowest HP by 10% of this champion's HP. The good thing about this is that it's healing based on its own HP. So if you can get Sabitha with very high HP, the actual healing that you're doing is probably going to be more than 10% of that champion's HP. As you level up the skill further, it only increases the damage, but not the healing. So overall, Sabitha is quite a nice champion to use. The revival is interesting because it also places the block damage buff, and then it can also heal you with its normal attacks. Next up, Conellia. And I've faced Conellia before, and honestly it was quite annoying because it kept healing the enemy champions again and again and again. So let's get started. Skill number 3 places a sleep debuff on an ally for 1 turn. So not an enemy, an ally. And then it heals that ally by 50% of their maximum HP and fills their turn meters by 50% whenever the sleep debuff expires or gets removed. However, if the sleep debuff was removed due to getting some damage from the enemy, it heals the ally by 100% and also completely fills their turn meters, making it quite likely that they're going to go next. So think about this for a bit. You put a sleep debuff on one of your allies for 1 turn, right? It's not a long sleep debuff, it's a 1 turn sleep debuff. And if it expires normally or gets removed from some other way, it heals the ally that required the sleep debuff by 50% of their maximum HP and also fills their turn meters by 50%, right? However, if that ally gets attacked, it heals the ally by 100%, right? It's basically giving you a full health after the sleep debuff is removed. So you already tanked the attack that the enemy attacked you with. You get 100% HP and a full turn meter, so now you're able to go out next. And the cooldown is just 4 turns, and if you level it up further, it's 2 turns. So it can do this quite often. And you probably realize why it's so annoying, right? After every 2 turns, Conellia can put a sleep debuff on a champion that has a fairly low HP, and then you attack the champion hoping that you'll be able to kill it, but you don't, and instead of killing it, you're giving it 100% HP and a full turn meter so it can release a deadly attack on you. This makes this skill quite annoying, and honestly, it was quite difficult to deal with. Skill number 2 has an 80% chance of placing a sleep debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. So quite a high chance of placing that sleep debuff on every single enemy. And then whenever an enemy loses a sleep debuff placed by this skill, there's a 50% chance of replacing it with a fear debuff for 1 turn instead. So firstly, placing a sleep debuff on all enemies. And then whenever this sleep debuff is removed, there's a decent chance that it's going to be replaced with a fear debuff. I guess everyone knows about the fear debuff, and essentially what that is that there's a 50% chance that whatever skill that your champion is trying to release will not get released and they're going to lose their turn. So quite deadly, and you can see as you level this up further, there's an increased chance of giving the debuff, and then there's a reduction in cooldown, making this go down from 5 turns to 3. Finally, it's skill number 1, the normal attack attacks an enemy and has a 40% chance of increasing the cooldown of one of the target's skill by 2 turns at random. So an effective strategy would be to choose enemies that have really deadly skills, and you're hoping that you can increase the cooldown of them using this skill. As you level it up further, you increase the damage and you also increase the chance of increasing the cooldown of the enemy's skills. And that's what makes Conellia such a devastating enemy to be facing in Arena. Next up, Vogoth. And for this particular champion, let's start with its passive skills. Festering Dynamo, and what this does is that whenever this champion is attacked, it heals all allies by 50% of the damage received. So based on the amount of damage that you're getting, half of that is what's going to go as healing towards the allies, including yourself. However, your own healing is going to be half of what the allies are receiving. If it's a boss, it only heals 25% of the damage received instead of half of the damage received. So, very nice healing. And of course, if you have Vogoth as a big tank, a huge amount of HP, it can allow yourself to be healing all the other champions by a very large amount. The other passive skill is that whenever it's attacked, it places a leech debuff on the attacker for 2 turns. The cool thing about leech is that whenever you attack an enemy with a leech debuff, you heal 18% of the damage that you dealt to them, which of course means that you are essentially getting extra heals. If the attacker is under a provoke debuff placed by this champion, it also has a 70% chance of increasing the cooldown of a random skill of the attacker by 2 turns, and it occurs once per attack. So obviously it does have a skill that assigns a provoke debuff, and well, if a provoked enemy attacks it, there's a chance that it's going to increase the cooldown of a random skill of that champion, and therefore you're going to be healing all your champions because somebody attacked it. You're also going to be assigning a leech debuff on the attacker, and of course they're provoked, so they must keep attacking you until the provoked debuff goes away. And since they're provoked, you also have a chance of increasing cooldowns of some of their important skills. Skill number 2 attacks all enemies, every single one, and has a 60% chance of placing a provoke debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. Now the annoying thing about provoke debuff is that not only does it force the enemies to attack this champion, it also forces them only to use their default skills. What's more annoying is the passive ability we just talked about. So even after the provoke debuff goes away, they potentially have a lot of cooldowns on their strong skills, so they might end up having to use the default skill anyway, even after the provoke debuff goes away. The fun thing is, it doesn't end there. It also has a 60% chance of placing a 50% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns on targets that receive the provoke debuff from this skill. So you're putting a provoke, you're also decreasing their ability to do damage through this skill, and you're attacking all enemies, right? So you can potentially provoke all of them and then potentially put a decreased attack on all of them as well. Essentially meaning that all the enemy champions are forced to attack Vogoth with the default skills, and then Vogoth has a chance of increasing the cooldown of their skills, putting a leech debuff on them, and also healing all of your champions based on the amount of damage you receive. Increasing the level of this skill reduces the cooldown at maximum level, so instead of 4 turns it's only 3, increases the damage that you do from the skill, and increases the chance of placing the provoke debuff and the decrease attack debuffs on the enemies. You see the amount of synergy in this champion? There's just so much of it, making this champion such a deadly champion to have in the arena. Finally, skill number 1, which is the default skill or the normal attack, attacks one enemy 3 times, and each hit has a 30% chance of increasing the duration of one random debuff on the target by 1 turn, which could potentially be the provoke or the leech that Vogoth himself might have applied on the enemies. Increasing the level of this skill increases the damage that it does and also increases the chance of increasing the debuff duration on the enemies. So overall, you can see why Vogoth is such a deadly champion, as it can heal your champions by a lot and also protects your other champions by provoking the enemies, forcing them to attack him. Overall, a very powerful epic champion. Last but not least, one of the best epic healers out there, Rector Drath. Skill number 3 revives a single ally with 60% HP and fills their turn meter by 60%. It also places a perfect wheel buff on them for 3 turns. And perfect wheel, it sort of assures that the champion isn't targeted as long as there are other champions that you have that don't have the perfect wheel. It also reduces area effect damage that the champion might receive. And because of Rector Drath's passive ability, it also heals the champion by 10% at the start of each of their turn and also increases res of the champions by 50. The cooldown is 6 turns but can be reduced to 4. Next up, the healing skill, and this one is big. Heals all allies by 20% of Rector Drath's maximum HP, meaning if you have Rector Drath with a lot of HP, this might be way more than 20% of their HP. After healing, it places a perfect wheel buff for 2 turns on allies that got full HP, which is the ideal thing that you want to have because perfect wheel protects you in so many other ways that we just talked about and also gives you that healing because of the passive ability of Rector Drath. However, if you're not full HP, it places a 15% continuous heal buff for 1 turn instead. As you level up the skill further, you can see the healing increases substantially, and of course you reduce the cooldown from 5 turns to 4. This skill, especially if you have a very high HP Rector Drath, which is something you definitely want to focus on, can heal your allies by a very large amount. In a way, assuring the survivability of your team, especially given that they also get a perfect wheel buff after you end up healing them to 100%, which is hopefully the case. Then the normal attack attacks one enemy and has a 35% chance of placing a 50% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns. You definitely want to target the big hitters of the enemy and place that decrease attack debuff so that they cannot do a lot of damage to your champions. Leveling up the skill increases the damage by a bit and also increases the chance of placing the decrease attack debuff on them, allowing your champions to live a little bit longer. This makes Rector Drath an amazing champion with the ability to revive, place perfect wheels, and also a massive amount of healing to all of your champions. In addition to that, it also has a chance of decreasing attack of the enemies, making things even better for you. So that's our top 5 healers to use in the arena. And before you go, I want you to know that you can save a lot of money in Raid Shadow Legends. Every time you make any purchase, you can get 10 to 35% of that amount back as credits to buy additional packs. If you're interested, check out the video that I'm linking to the description of this video, or click the button that's going to appear at the top right of the screen that'll take you to that video and join a lot of other people that are saving a lot of money whenever they make any purchase in the Raid Shadow Legends. You can also join our Discord and ask me there personally or ask other people that are enjoying these bonuses as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.